So, going off of what Brandon left off with, next question is, how do we get here? What are the physical steps we need to take to see the material change that is imperative to our survival and the survival of our planet? Corporate media and leaders of our two corporate parties would have you believe that change is slow and to have faith in the governmental systems that we have set in place. That making change is about compromise, and that in order for us to truly change the world, we'll need to have an all-inclusive dialogue. They're always talking about like a dialogue of all sides around societal issues which are dividing us. This is not on its face wrong, except that we will not seek change in our world by starting a dialogue and seeking compromise with capitalist corporate politicians and big business. We see through history the gains made for working people, poor people, people of color, queer and trans people, all marginalized people, were made through movements from below. Neither of these parties, the Democrats or Republicans, have roots in the working class and continue every day to prove their allegiance to producing profit and pleasing corporations above human life. The Republicans do it when they persistently try to take healthcare away from millions of people for the purposes of profit. The Democrats do it when they deliberately undercut campaigns of more progressive candidates for corporate candidates like Hillary Clinton. We see throughout history that whether those in office are big D's or big R's doesn't matter half as much as the movements of the time when it comes to making change. Nixon, who I would personally describe as the literal devil, was in many ways one of the most progressive presidents we have ever had in terms of the policies that were actually put in place while he was in office. Nixon was in office during the implementation of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Clean Air and Water Acts, the Earned Income Tax Credit, Equal Payment Opportunity Act, Endangered Species Act, the occupation of Safe and Health Administration, and during the end of the Vietnam War. How could a truly despicable, racist Republican be the most powerful person in the world, most powerful person in our country during all of these really important reforms that are now integral to some of the few gains that we've seen in modern American history? How could that happen? It was through the pressure and the strength of grassroots movements at the time. Nixon was in office from 1969 to 1974, during peak moments of the anti-war movement and the Black Power movement. When movements are truly strong enough to threaten the government's veil of full legitimacy and capacity to create profit, leaders are forced to concede to the people. It's in those moments that we are faced with political choices that can truly lead to revolutionary moments where we are in the place where we can literally physically, or we are being set up to a path to literally physically taking power from the ruling class, or allow for the potential reclaiming of power by the capitalist state. We are in a critical moment right now. Our planet has an expiration date. Natural disasters are pummeling impoverished people from Texas to India. Puerto Rico is facing a literally apocalyptic situation in the wake of Hurricane Irma. The President of the United States of America, the biggest exporter of imperialism and violence all over the world, our president, is embedded with white supremacists and all but explicitly backs them every single day. It's time to move. Movements like Black Lives Matter, beginning in 2014, the worldwide resistance post the election of Trump, all the way to where we are now with everything going on, including the massive resistance in Catalonia against the Spanish state, shows that while those in power continue to exercise more repression and cruelty than ever, working people are not ready to buckle under their violence. As socialists, we aim to build on the energy used by using the politics of class unity. We aim to build on this energy by using the politics of class unity to create the broadest movement possible of marginalized people, working people, poor people who are suffering under the brunt of capitalism. We know the working class to be an extremely powerful force that when unified cannot be so easily thwarted by the working class. And that is because working people are literally, physically in the spaces that generate profit for the ruling class. If you take that away, and you take away their power. We are in the position we're right there. Like when we're talking about seizing the means, like a lot of the time we're talking about literally, physically seizing the means when we get to that point, when we get to that revolutionary moment. We believe the best way to unite the working class is to highlight the many ways in which all people of varying marginalized identities suffer under capitalism and build movements based on concrete transitional demands, and by transitional I mean demands that meet people where they're at, meet the masses who are not socialists, who are not here in this room, who maybe haven't even thought about an alternative to capitalism. Meeting them where they're at and then going forward from there. So transitional demands, using those to compel these people to fight for their own liberation and in turn the liberation of others. We work to build smaller movements as stepping stones to more concrete class consciousness with the aim of mobilizing a critical mass of people to, again, eventually seize the means of production. We've all seen memes on Facebook, we understand. Socialist Alternative has a current city council member in Seattle named Shama Sawant, who has twice been elected in the city of Seattle. She's unapologetically a socialist and ran independently. She took no corporate money, and she, since her first election in 2013, has in no way capitulated to Republicans or Democrats or general corporate interests. She helped lead the successful Fight for 15 in Seattle, first city in the United States to pass 15 in a metropolitan area, by creating coalition between labor and grassroots movements. She helped lead the successful halt of the construction of what would have been the most expensive police bunker in the country and helped with the same coalition of labor and grassroots movements to reallocate that money to affordable housing in Seattle. She takes the wage of the average worker and gives the rest of her city council salary to help build grassroots movements. Rather than being another Democrat or Republican with no accountability to their constituents, continually turning their back on working class people, Shama shows what it looks like when the interests of marginalized people are actually represented and acted upon, and helps to draw the distinction between corporate politics and politics which serve working and poor people. And we're not going to get to socialism by electing city council members until every single city council member in person in public office is a socialist. But it helps to draw people in, to show them what it looks like when politicians are representing us, and the kind of people that we would have representing us, who would be fully integrated beyond city council, beyond the presidency. How those people representing us would look under socialism. This is what happens when I stop reading. Because of this, Shama has not only made substantial gains for the people of Seattle, but she has drawn people into struggle in ways that Democrats and Republicans simply cannot. Of course, because they don't want to compel everyday people to fight capitalism. In New York, our organization called for some of the city's largest anti-Trump protests after the election, because it means nothing to run candidates, no matter how good their politics, if there's not a grassroots movement on the ground pushing for these gains underneath those elected officials, the few who actually represent working class people in any way. We need to continue to build on the mass outrage towards Trump and this catastrophe called capitalism with the developing of mass resistance. And that is why we are asking all of you here to help in the later half of this meeting and in the weeks forward to help us bring a strong current of socialist resistance to Portland State. On November 16th, we are going to be mobilizing the students of PSU and folks from the broader community for a national day of action called by Socialist Alternative, Socialist Students, and Millennials Revolution across the country to say 1 year is enough. 1 year with Trump is more than enough. We will be protesting Trump's violent racist xenophobic regime under 3 demands, 3 transitional demands. No racist deportations and to end racist policing, Medicare for all, free reproductive care, and free public college, cancellation of all student debt. And these are transitional demands which we believe in, obviously, and we believe do the work of bringing people in to this struggle as they directly relate to the crisis people are experiencing right now, more than ever. We want to build socialist students of PSU and unite PSU students under these common demands. We're going to build a movement on this campus, continue to build a movement in the city, and create another stepping stone toward the liberation of working people. We know that when we fight, unified against our common enemy, the ruling class, who perpetuate the violence of capitalism for their own benefit, when we unite against them and stand up with numbers and a message, we win. We want you to join us. We want you to stay for the second half of the meeting. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your experiences, because there's a lot of different kinds of people, different faces in this room. And when I say a broad movement, I mean a movement of all kinds of people, different races, all genders, and we need all of your ideas. So I'm excited for the rest of this conversation. Stay for the rest of it. Thank you.